Hey up everyone, it's Enlighten the Shadows here. We got episode 25 today with Adam Pagett. Last week we had special episode 9 and that was with myself and one of the Enlighten boys, Richard Smith. If you've missed it, I cannot believe you have, because I would say that was probably one of the most vulnerable episodes I've been involved with on a personal level. So Rich and I used to live together before I got married, and oddly enough, we got into some serious financial debt individually without even knowing per se. And we got to the point when we actually had to get something called an IVA, and it was pretty awful. So last week, I'd probably say I've come publicly with one of the most vulnerable things in my life. And I wanted to do that because last month was Money Month, and we skilled you up with Nick Crazy, who he lost $500,000 from addiction. We also had James Adcock, one of my best mates of 25 years, talked about redundancy and job loss. So we want to skill you up some areas to help you with that in tough times. And then, as I say, that debt management and the debt crisis we talked about with Rich Smith was a pretty big deal for me. So if you haven't seen it, make sure you go there. But straight off the cuff today, as I said, we've got Adam Pagett. So I want to say a massive welcome to. How you doing, Adam, mate?
All right, thanks. Yeah.
Top man. Yeah, do you know what? It's class that you've come on, because we were just saying before we come on the camera how we just kind of crossed paths on Twitter, and I was like just mind my own business, scrolling through Twitter as you do, and I remember coming across your main tweet, which I think has got like 18,000 or something, hasn't it?
147,000 likes.
Close.
And it's been retweeted over 10,000 times, and just countless messages of congratulations and stuff. I did try and start replying to them, you know, when it first went out, but then realised this is way too much. I'd be sort of like awake 24/7. I'd get RSI in my thumb, you know what I mean, trying to sort of like reply. So it was just like one message of thanks, but it's just it's so strange how just that tweet of like that sort of the things what's happened in my life and to where I've got to cause that much of a reaction, because is that like saying that it's a surprise to people that people can change and people can get out of a dark place, you know? It's and also is it saying that it's not happening enough? It should be normal where people should go, oh, that's good, and then scroll on. You know,
it's such a good point, and I think, I don't know, it's probably harder for you to say well done, because naturally in life a lot of people, they don't give themselves too much credit because they don't want to come across as prideful or arrogant and anything like that. So what I love about you is that humility you just kind of like ooze out. But it's such a good point. I think we see a lot of people who have come from your similar-ish background, which we'll get into today for our viewers, and they're stuck, you know. And I think that's one of the main reasons I really wanted to invite you on the show, and I'm so buzzing that you did, because naturally you did have a couple of hesitations, and I'm glad that you did also, but you're here now, and I think it's wonderful, because I think this month particularly, we're going through Lent, and we want to call it like Lent for lads, and we want to kind of just inspire men with some high caliber quality stories where people are like flipping it. If this guy can come out of utter like desolation and just rise up and make something amazing of himself, I just think, well, what's their excuse almost? And I'm not nullifying their suffering or nullifying their experience. I just think it's important, man. So yeah.
It's showing it's a journey, and it is a difficult one, but it's like, you know, it's like hanging on in there, and you can do it, you know. I got a direct message off that tweet, and I gave quite a long reply to it, and it's for this chap, and he said, I don't mind you sharing this, but he's actually saying he felt like he was going to kill himself. He said, reading your story, it was like a blueprint of his life. And he's looking at facing 5 years in jail, and going, and I've thought about ending it and that. He goes, but honestly, mate, you don't know how much your words have meant. He goes, that, you know, I can carry on. And I sent him quite a long reply and said, look, you know, message me anytime. You know, it's like, you know, and, you know, just don't give up, man, you know.
It's
You wouldn't
class.
think 20 years ago I'm eating pizza out of the bin, you know, on Piccadilly in London, you know, and thinking, you know, never mind that I'd be thinking 20 years' time I'm going to be sat doing a podcast or working for Bradford Council as a social worker. You know, life,
Wonderful.
you can't predict how it's going to be. See how it plays out. Don't give up, you know.
Wow. I'll even just like that say, just don't give up. I think that can be enough to really just inspire people. But sort of flipping out. You've already exposed some crazy stuff like eating pizza out of a bin. That's like, oh man, it's like so humbling to hear just myself. Like, because I had it quite rough. When I was a little boy, I was in a very lovely family home. My dad left. The bank took the house off my mum and my brother and sister, and we were made homeless. But my mum, she's such an incredible person. She never managed to show too many cracks to the point where, yeah, we were homeless, but she made anything and everything to ensure that us three kids had a normal-ish life, and it was like we were blessed. I don't know how she did to this day. So to hear stuff what you said, I'm like, well, yeah, I was homeless once, but not in that level where it's just, it doesn't seem like you can make any way out. But yeah, so before we go into you being homeless, I was just going to ask you about around about the age of 18, you know, you're chomping at the bit, young lad as well. And I've got mates who did this too, who went straight into the military after school. So was it, you say it was the army that you went to at 18?
Yeah, I went into the army. Yeah, 18. I did intend joining straight from leaving school, but I thought, no, I want to see what life's like first, you know, so I've got something to compare it to. And then that way I don't go in there thinking, oh, I've got to stay if I don't like it because I might not be able to cope outside. I mean, I grew up with a single parent and two sisters, you know, so I never had that sort of male influence or role model in my life. And it weren't until my sister married a soldier and we used to go visit that I thought, yeah, this is a life for me, you know, get paid to be dirty, you know what I mean? And just, hang around with lads and have a good laugh and that. And so, I joined up and, it was brilliant, but at first it started really rocky. You know, I suffered quite a lot of racial abuse as a mixed race. My mum is half Afro-Caribbean, you know. My grandfather was from Bahamas, so I'm sort of like third generation, so my skin's a bit lighter. And, you know, I really struggled with finding a sense of identity growing up. You know, I weren't white enough, I weren't black enough, you know, and it was trying to find a group where I belonged. So I sort of pinned everything onto the army for that, you know, for that acceptance. So when I went in training and I started getting a lot of racial abuse from a training instructor, to the point where I'd come in and I'd have curry powder scattered all over my kit and my bed and all my locker turned out, you know, and it was just after a grueling exercise, and I just couldn't cope with that. It was like, this is not what it was meant to be like, you know. And I took myself off into the drying room, locked myself in there, and I just broke down basically, you know, because it was like, I can't go back home. I can't see that I failed, you know, and, you know, I don't belong here. And it was only because some of my friends who I was training with sort of came knocking the door going, look, it's all right, going, look, just leave me alone, I want to stay here. I'd done about sort of like 12 weeks in training. And eventually sort of like, you know, got it all out and things, but I made up my mind I was going to quit. And if they wouldn't let me go, I was just going to go AWOL, you know. And I came out and went in back to the room, and some of the lads were actually sorting my kit out, you know. And it was like, I didn't ask them or anything, but they were like taking my webbing apart, cleaning it, getting my locker back. Do you know what I mean? And if they hadn't done that, I don't know. It was just, not everybody's like that, you know.
No.
There were some people in that training what never said anything when I would be asking if I went home for Christmas, because Pakis don't celebrate Christmas. And, you know, could I see my face in my boots when I polished them? You know, there were some people where they sniggered, and you just thought, that's probably what you think as well. you know,
Yeah.
future members of EDL and the BNP sort of thing in the making. But I stuck it out because, you know, I did feel that acceptance from some people there. And there were people who I went on to join my battalion with. And the racism, yeah, it virtually disappeared. Even though there was only one or two other black guys in the battalion,
Yeah.
you know, they were well respected. One was a battalion boxer. You're not going to call him. Do you know what I mean? You'll be waking up with a crowd around you, you know. But yeah, and I found that, you know, people liked me for me sort of thing, and I could talk and I could have a laugh, and, you know, and it bridged that, you know.
Yeah, you always find that as well, like in life, there's always that small portion of just pure ignorant people who bully, who try and find your Achilles heel, whether they think, oh, all right, well, they're a minority for this because they're skin color, or, you know, there's a certain feature that isn't, like, quote, normal to the pack. And it's this kind of behavior. I think that's still prevalent today in you know, my generation as well, like, where it's brutal. It's absolutely brutal. And it just makes you want to crumble, like, and I'll be vulnerable here on the show, like, you know, we've got a private Facebook group, and we just put it on the screen right now. That's for people to join. It's an absolutely phenomenal place where guys are opening up, guys are being vulnerable and courageous, and then they're getting loads of love and encouragement and support. But yeah, recent times there's a few people that just criticizing what we're doing, and I'm like, man, we're all full-time employment. This is what we're doing, is off our own backs, fully voluntary. We can't always do everything perfectly. And it got in my head a little bit, mate. And, you know, obviously this compared to pure racial abuse is nothing, but I kind of relate right now in my life where you get just this small part of a group, and they just, you're like, stop.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Because it starts off, but it's like you're attacking somebody, verbally attacking somebody, even if it's really subtle. You know, it's like, and you're giving people complexes, you're labeling people. You, like you say, you might say, like, it's kind of character defect, you know, like you might have a larger nose or something, and you blow that out of proportion and give them a complex about themselves, you know, and it's, it lowers someone's self-esteem. From like Twitter, I've been on Twitter long sort of thing. I used to have about 2 followers and all that since before this, but what I've found from that tweet as well, I got myself a troll. I'm like, wow, you know, I'm like, wow, have I made it now? I've got a troll, you know, and I thought at one time I would have took that really seriously to heart, sort of thing. I'm just thinking, you're a faceless person, right? What's, you know, your life is probably, I think you're probably more insecure about your life than I am about mine, you know, and that's the way I think of it. It's like, don't hate you, I sympathize and feel a bit sorry for you,
Powerful.
you know,
Powerful,
because
mate.
What is it that you've got to, like, sort of verbally attack someone, like your show sort of thing, for the good you do? What are you getting out of that? That's, man, you've got serious problems, I think, you know, and you need some help. There
was stuff for Talk Radio that we had. We got invited to do a interview on Talk Radio, and the exact same with that. Most people go, well, like, you've had it rough in your wife, you've been through so much, good on you for starting Light in the Shadows. And then there was a few people like, oh, so they see this beautiful flat that we've got, that we've worked our absolute asses off to get, and should the first lockdown have been delayed by a month or two, I wouldn't have started my job. You know, my wife, she would have struggled to get clients, because the first lockdown, no one knew anything. We were all scared. No. So literally everything you see, like, we would have had to start selling everything we own, because there was no income, and we were being stopped from having any income. And I was on that universal credits, which was so humiliating, but got on with it. So you always get in life small amount of people just naysaying, trolling. Hey, and actually, I think you nailed it on the head, Adam, mate. I think a lot of people who do that, I reckon they're just struggling themselves, and it might be jealousy, it might be anger. They're trying to work their own stuff out, and then they see you like, and they just attack you, and you're like, really? I don't even know you.
No, this is it. And it's like they say, like we bullying, like children bullying. It's like, look past the bully back to his home life or her home life. And there's probably lots of fundamental things wrong, you know, where they're not living in a loving environment. You know, they could be like the victims of child abuse, you know, and it's the only way they can make themselves feel better and forget, you know, that person at the end of the day is going back to a home where they probably hate every waking minute, you know.
Probably hate themselves.
Definitely. You know, probably self-harm. You know, it's because they've been dealt a pretty crap hand in their life, you know. Children aren't born inherently bad, you know.
Totally agree with that.
They're a victim of circumstances, you know. Look at like parents with the environment they're living in.
Yeah,
you know, is it a loving, nurturing home?
Massive. Now you get that. So when we were talking about you in the army, you know, you're getting bare bullied and abused, and there was those lads that like basically that random act of kindness that kind of like lured you to stay. So how did the course of the rest of your years in the army like pan out from there? So did you manage to make good friends, or what happened, mate?
Yeah, made brilliant friends. Who I'm still in touch with today through army reunions and Facebook. You know, it's Facebook used to be good and not evil. Just able to like connect with so many people. Because like I said, I was in for 6 years, nearly 6 years. So there's people coming and going at that time. When I wasn't married, I'm living in a room with 4 people. 3 people, so there's 4 of us. So people are changing. You're getting to know. There's that comradeship, you know. You are brothers from other mothers, you know. It's like you're living away from home, like living in Germany. You're going to get to know these people inside and out. You see them pick the nose fart, you know what I mean? Walk around bollock naked and
I was going to say, was that it?
yeah, do you know what I mean? And it's like, and the humour and everything else, and it's like, I chose most of the time not to go home on leave. You'd go to other people's houses and stuff. You know, I was in a regiment where they recruited from like Shropshire, Cornwall, Durham, Yorkshire, the light infantry. You know, you could draw a line across the country of the recruiting areas. So like, I've got friends who live in Newcastle, Sunderland, Mackhams, you know, Pityackers in Peterlee, and you know, right down to, you know, Cornwall, and it's fantastic.
Class, yeah.
But I think it became a problem when I went to Northern Ireland. I mean, I'd only been serving probably about 2 years. We went to Northern Ireland, served a tour, West Belfast, 6 months there, very intense, 100% nationalist area, you know, it was Falls Road, Anderson Town Road, you know, and yeah, I used to alternate between working in the ops room to going out on patrol. Now, yeah, if I were ever in any doubt of the significance of the colour of my skin and my nationality, were quickly sort of resolved when I went out on to a patrol, you know, because I weren't just a British bastard, I was a black British bastard, you know, and it's, yeah, I won't even try to understand the politics of Northern Ireland, you know. No. I don't know, and I didn't then, you know. I see why people, how they are, they want a united Ireland or they want to remain part of it. Something I could never solve, you know. But it was like just that intense sort of feeble atmosphere, you know, being in uniform for more or less 6 months. The only time you're leaving is you're going out on patrol, you know, and it's like, and your life is at risk. And there's incidents as well, you know. So I came back from there relatively unscathed. I sort of thought, but I did struggle to adjust. I didn't really, I mean, I carried on for another sort of like 2 years, but it was like things just went from bad to worse. You know, I became disillusioned with the army. We had another tour of Northern Ireland coming up, which I really didn't want to go. My marriage broke down, you know, and I ended up staying in my flat by myself with the prospect of having moved back into the camp, you know, and it was like, this is it, what's happened? I grew up with two sisters. I thought I could make a marriage work, you know, it's like, this shouldn't happen like this, you know, it's not you, it's me, and all that things running through my head, what I could have done different, where did it all start to go wrong? And I started using cannabis, you know, I'm a firm believer, because I like when I've done talks at schools and things like that, the first dealer you meet is somebody you know, it's a friend. It's almost like a grooming process.
Yeah.
You know, no one ever just wakes up and goes, I'm going to go score this drug or heroin today and use.
That's so true.
It's somebody talking to you going, no, you'll be okay. The first time I tried heroin was in a group of 6 people where we used to meet in a flat and take like benzodiazepines and things like that, farmies. And somebody pulling out a wrap of heroin and saying, do you want a couple of lines? Well, no, I'm not doing that. And it's like, no, you'll be all right. Honestly, if you don't do it more than 3 days on the trot, you won't get a monkey on your back. You won't get an addiction. So it was like, well, okay then. So you're sort of reassured by people you know.
Yeah.
And it's either, so they're not doing it in isolation, because if you're doing drugs by yourself with no one else, that is a problem. It's a problem anyway. But if you're doing it as a solitary activity, or people want you to do it because it shares the cost, or it makes them feel better that they're not doing it on their own, you know. So it's a case of reassuring and encouraging friends. And every drug I ever tried was through a friend saying, oh, you know, even to crack going, have you ever tried crack? No. Oh, you want it, it's brilliant. You know, well, I'm doing heroin, so I know. You know, I'm suddenly not going to develop this moral compass. Go, oh, I ain't doing that. Do you know what I mean? I was on that train and I couldn't get off. Do you know what I mean? It's like I would. So just getting back to the army. So yeah, cut long story short, I got caught with possession of cannabis because I was hanging around with other like-minded people. And my mental health just deteriorated, you know. And people used to go over to Holland. So it was a case of, well, if you're going, can you get me some? So it's, all intents and purposes, it's dealing. But yeah, you're just sorting friends out because they'll do it when they go. And I went over, I came back, I had 4 ounces of skunk. And I got stopped on Dutch-German border, and then that was it then, you know, remanded for court-martial. So this was it. This was like my life's over. You know, I'm getting court-martial. I'm getting kicked out of the army, the thing I wanted to do all my life, you know. My marriage is over. What's next? So I started driving home at weekends. I'd drive home on a Friday night, go out. I started taking ecstasy and amphetamine. The rave era had started. You're talking 1990 sort of 4. You know, 93, 94. So I was caught in May 1993. My court martial was November the 11th, straight after Remembrance. the Remembrance.
Gosh, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? The court martial was at like 12 midday, district court martial in Paderborn in Germany. And it was like, crap start to the army, really crap end. Good in between, but it's like, they're not seeing that I needed some help, you know. I ended up in BMH's alone, psychiatric hospital for arrest. I got out 8 weeks later, you know. Yeah. And basically, I was just working my ticket, doing camp duties while the battalion went to Ireland and waiting to be court-martialed. And like I said, you know, I started driving home on a Friday night. I wouldn't get back to Halifax while, you know, 7 o'clock Saturday morning. Go straight out, score some amphetamine, some speed, and some ease for night. Then go to a club. We've got Donny Warehouse in Doncaster, BYOs, and stay there till 8 in the morning on a Sunday. Go to someone's house for a smoke, and then drive back.
Flipping out.
Do you know what I mean? And be on parade on Monday morning. This is what my life was like. It was just pure drug fueled and high octane, because it was like, I've got nothing to lose. Everything's over.
So do you know, like, part of the rave scene then? Because I as a kid grew up in the rave scene as well, and thank God I didn't get into any drugs. I was so focused on football, I wouldn't dare. But yeah, like I grew up on the rave tape. So like, you know, Hicksy, he's like the Godfather, and MC Storm and all that. So yeah, I was massively into hardcore scene as well. So
yeah.
I never knew before meeting you like that we'd have that in common. But yeah, I massively got in the rave scene, like going out all night, and then when you come out the club and it's like sunlight. It's
yeah, and you're
level.
soaked in sweat.
Oh,
But you
big
come out
time.
that club and the rave scene replaced something. It gave me that sense of acceptance again, that
Family,
belonging.
innit?
You know, there were no racism or anything like that. Everybody
No, there
was just
isn't.
loved up. And it was like, I like this. I like this feeling of like everybody is sound, you know, it's like, so it became, I started doing like, when I got out, because I got sent to Colchester for 7 months, you know, I appealed against my sentence, ended up serving like just short of 4 months, and I got released back to Halifax. I left home at 18, returned at 25, you know, and it wasn't ever going to work living with my mum and my sisters, you know what I mean, in their house, with my brother-in-law who left the army and everything else, you know, one alpha male, and there's me, and it's like, I'm going out, coming back stinking of oversoil, car full of flyers, you know, and it was like then going out to friends on an evening, getting stoned, taking pills, started doing a lot of acid. It was like, anything were better than the reality of being straight headed for me, you know. It was like running away from my past or what's happened. And so it was a dead easy chain to fall into, a pathway towards chaotic drug addiction, you know, because in the end it started getting like, but I think early on I found like, instead of uppers running around off my head, I preferred downers. So through the sort of like taking like DFs and opiate-based tablets and stuff, and preferring to stay in the flat with people with a gouch on, it was an easy transition over to heroin. You know, the thought of like being off my nut, running around talking non-stop, you know, and amphetamine didn't appeal to me. Plus the come downs, I felt suicidal off the come downs off it, you know, to the point where there were a lot of contemplating just to do it, because everything just seems so bleak and grey. From the euphoria, thinking life is beautiful, to the black and white next day, raining outside. I'm living in my sister's spare bedroom, and I've got
an extreme.
Nothing.
Yeah. No, I feel you. That's, mate, you're going in today. Like, literally, thank you. Like, our viewers probably thinking, wow, this guy has been through a lot. He's lived life. And I just appreciate your honesty and vulnerability. I was just thinking about like the prison stuff. So you obviously court-martialed and you spent time in prison. Like, how long in total in your life have you been in prison for now?
Well, let's say 4 months in military prison, but then in States prison in Guernsey, I got a 10-year prison sentence, and I served just short of just short of 4, about 3.5, you know, because like good behaviour, and everything else, you can get out on a third. Wow. But I mean, prior to that, sort of like I say, I ended up being kicked out of home, staying with mates who were dealers, that sort of thing, you know. End up where I'm working and owing them my wage, because luckily, like I say, I learned how to weld before I joined the army, so it could always secure me work. I couldn't maintain the work.
Right.
Then I went to Holland because I thought, oh, fresh start, let's go to Holland. The drugs are cheaper, you know, and better. I ended up going from job to job there because, like I say, I could secure jobs, but I couldn't maintain them. The drug addiction took over. Because by this time, like I say, I was flat out on heroin and using crack any time I could afford it. And I sort of made like 2 attempts. So the second attempt, I went back out there, ended up in Rotterdam, got fired from a job, went over there with a mate, persuaded him, another drug user, to go out there. And we went, and he managed to keep the job. Me, I'm working in a factory, and you were like packing kebabs and things like that on an industrial line. I was just so off my head, you know, because I was doing smart all the time. at one point, I actually gouged out and fell on the conveyor belt. You know, it's like, yeah, you know, it's just fired me on the spot. Well, the accommodation came with the job. So I end up homeless in Rotterdam. I mean, you know, which were nothing new because I'd slept on loading bays before and stuff like that in between jobs, you know, going to job agencies in Holland. And I decided to come back home. So I begged a load of money and, you know, I did the whole thing of like, you go to a coach station and you go around to all English going, oh, I've lost my ticket to get home, you know, and they all give you some money. But most of the time I'd go score and go, oh, I'll set off tomorrow. So in the end, I did sort of actually buy a little bit of gear, got on that coach, got as far as London, and for my family went, you know, I want to come home. Can you help me get home? He was like, we don't know what to do, man, anymore. You know, I'd been a nightmare to live with for about 7 years. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like things going missing out of the house and everything else. And it was like, oh, but my mum, you know, she totally like always wanted the best for us. Because I used to say, why do you even try? Because you're my son. Do you know what I mean? And no child should die before the parents. But I feel like there's going to be a knock at door and it's going to be that they found your body and stuff. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, my sister once found me dumped outside a telephone box, 5 o'clock in the morning, because I'd OD'd. And someone had thrown me in a bath of water trying to bring me around. And when I couldn't be fetched around, they dumped me outside. And it was like just below freezing. And if they hadn't come back from like a trip where they'd been and found me, you know, took me to hospital and that, I'd be dead, you know. So yeah, I ended up in London and, you know, homeless, living in hostels, preferring the hostels. I preferred to stay on the streets because some of the hostels were not very nice places, you know what I mean? It went on upstairs.
Is it the people? Is it to do with the people there?
The people in the environment, you know, where you had to sign in and you're like a pen on a chain and there's a member of staff behind a perspex screen, you know. That's what I imagine, that's what I think bad hostels are now, you know, because you're sort of in your room, you've got people tapping on the doors, asking you've got money and stuff like that. They were more of it was too chaotic, they were more of a safe presence, sleeping rough, you know, up on the Strand and stuff like that, and just begging and just being part of that, again, a community, another acceptance and belonging, part of the homeless community. You know, I've seen some of the most gracious acts of kindness from people who've got nothing, and it could be giving somebody £1 so they can get a drink for a straightener so they don't start suffering from withdrawal from somebody who's drink dependent themselves. Yeah. Do you know? I'd be begging and I'd be on someone's spot and someone would come up and say, that's my spot. Oh, well, how much do you need? What are you short of? You know, it's because I just needed to get sorted so I wouldn't be ill, so I could live to another day, you know. And in the end, yeah, cut a long story short, got back to Halifax, slept a bit rough, ended up in Guernsey, got offered a job there, and I thought, oh, you know, I could do this. It's another fresh start because life is all about one fresh start after another because you burn your bridges. And I went to Guernsey and I couldn't buy drugs there. They were like expensive and they were there, you know. So I went through this mad withdrawal and, you know, the boss at the time, I'd gone over to be a waiter, which I was terrible at anyway. He thought he had really bad flu. So I sort of like, well, bedded down for about 2 weeks, got over it. And it was like, well, I've done it now. I didn't realize I was so psychologically dependent, you know, but I sort of like, I was clean and I was working, you know, and I ended up like sort of leaving that job and working in a builders merchants, got in a relationship. And I moved in with, that fell apart. So I moved in with 2 teachers, 2 female teachers, and it was brilliant. You know, it was like friends sort of thing, and having parties, bottles of wine, and all that sort of. And I'd lived there a fair few months. And one night, we'd had a party, and everybody'd gone home, and we were sat talking, and I just bared all about my life. You know, because I've just felt so comfortable. I just bared all about the drug addiction, everything else. And thought not of it, went to bed. The next day, got up, went into the kitchen, and then sat there and said, we'd like you to leave. We don't feel safe if you're living in the house.
What?
Boom. That was my relapse straight away then, because it's like, what's the point? You know, it was like they just made me feel so bad. that, you know, my past is my past. I can't change that. And is this what it's going to be? So it was like started just to fly home at weekends and just score gear and just lock myself in the hotel room and then take some back to keep me going during the week. My relapse, my addiction came back with a vengeance. And then obviously falling in with right crowd or the wrong crowd ended up being led to the prison sentence, you know. And when I went to prison, it was like, for me, it was a saving. You know, I got the help I needed.
Really?
I was diagnosed with polysubstance abuse psychosis. I was given a psychiatrist and I worked with a psychologist, a brilliant substance misuse worker who used to be a panel beater in Scotland. So I was like, well, if you can go from that to this, it's like, well, you could do it, you know? And that's what got me thinking that. And I used that time in prison to reflect and heal, you know, and had that wraparound support, you know, because, it was a sort of tough time. My mum got killed when I was in prison. She was sexually assaulted in her home and died of her injuries in hospital 10 days later. Now, only 3 weeks before, she'd only just been out to visit me, because it was a year and a half I was in prison before I even told her I was in prison. I just would say, oh, I'm busy, I can't come home. You know, make sure nobody talks around me when I'm on prison phone. And then when it was like, well, you've got to come home again. Well, I can't. I'm in prison. And she went, oh, no. So she came out to visit me, and my elderly mother sat there and said, at least I know you're safe now. And you think, wow. So me serving 10 years in prison is more of a positive. Because for 11 years, you've thought, when am I going to be you're going to get the message that I am dead. Do you know what I mean?
It's the unknown, isn't it?
Yeah. So, and then, like I say, she came to visit me a couple of times. She didn't even tell my sisters I was in prison, you know. So it carried on because she didn't want them to think that I'd not turned my life around finally, you know. And, when she was in hospital in intensive care, I phoned my sister and she's going, you've got to come home. Mom's not going to make it. She's having heart attacks while she's in a coma. And, you know, and I went, I can't. Well, why not? I'm in prison. She went, you what? She goes, and I knew my mum were keeping something from us. Why didn't she tell us? Because she didn't want you to think that, again, I've just let everybody down or, you know?
Yeah.
But we have such a strong relationship now. I had to go live with her in a place called Warsaw, just outside Mansfield.
I know where Warsaw. I know where Warsaw is.
Right. So when I got out, you know, I went there because it was the only way I was going to get my parole. And I used to go to probation in Mansfield and had a brilliant criminal justice worker. And I was writing off for jobs and stuff. And I wanted to do this, you know, like, help people and use my past and all that. But it's easier said than done. People say give you second chances. Not always. You know, when you tick in that box that you've got a criminal record, what's not regarded as spent, you've got 20 applicants for one job. One of them's got a criminal record. You can't tell me the employer's really going to go, I'm going to give this guy a chance. He's only got 10 years in jail for smuggling crack cocaine. Do you know what I mean? And why not give it a go? You know, so I started becoming really disillusioned. Like, you know, I wrote for 17 jobs. I got one reply back, which was, sorry, not suitable. And, you know, I was on the verge of, you know, I started to relapse. So again, it was like, I'd swap one cell for another. I'd swap my prison cell for my sister's spare bedroom where I'd watch TV in there, go get my food and then go back there. I didn't know anybody in Mansfield either. So it worked long before, you know, I was starting to have that sort of wobble. Yeah. And I was at probation and I just said, you know, what's the point? I'm not getting anywhere. I can't get a job. And they said, look, there's this housing organisation called Framework. I went, right. And it goes, what they do is they do a training course. You do a training course and you do some volunteering with them and you have a chance of getting a 9-month paid traineeship as a support worker. And I thought, oh, all right, then I'll give it a go. You know, it stops me having to go to probation twice a week for a start. You know, that's how I was thinking, you know. And I thought, well, and I've got nothing else to do. So I did this course, 6 weeks, going to this big estate up in Mansfield, Oak Tree Estate, I think it's called, and did this course, and it was all about, you know, working with people and seeing the positives in people and all that, and listening skills and everything else. And I just related to it. But then I had to get a place to volunteer, and I didn't have a clue where I could go. So I spoke to my criminal justice worker, a guy called Craig Bird. I'm going to mention him because he's a fantastic guy. He's also ex-army as well. He went, I know a place of yours. I've got people I work with live there. It's a homeless hostel in Worksop. It's run by Framework as well. And I think you'd be all right there. And he took me up there. And we sat outside, we're going to can't go in. He's like, goes, oh, what in there? They've probably all been to university. They've got degrees and that. And I just won't fit. And he's going, look, you've got a lot to offer. He goes, come on, I'll come in with you. And it's like a kid starting school I were, you know. Yeah. Went in, had a chat, and started volunteering. And I set up things like going to gym. I set up like an activity like club to get a wake up Potter Street Escape Committee, you know, and I produced posters where it's got the guy from Escape to Victory popping out of ground saying it can't be this hard to get out of Worksop, you know. And I did this, right, because I want goal as well. I love it. I cooked meals so I ate well. I organised trips to the cinema so I got to go to movies all the time.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, and to gym as well, you know. But I was working with people where the chronic substance misusers. But this time, when I was a substance misuse, you don't realise, you don't see around you, you've got them rose-tinted glasses on. But because I was clean and I'm working with somebody where they've lost a lot of weight, the life is like chaotic and around drug dependency. I could think, I could actually look and go, that was me. And it was like that what kept spurring me forward. I understood and I got where people come from, you know. I understood why people make the crazy decisions where people think, how the fuck did you think that was going to turn out?
Yeah.
In their head, it works.
It works,
you know?
yeah.
I made them decisions, you know. I'd worked all these plans out where people must be thought, like looked at me and thought, what on earth are you thinking of doing that or carrying that out, you know? So I felt, again, found another acceptance and a belonging, but this time in a positive way.
Yeah, massively.
The manager there, a guy called Nick Pearson, he's still there, the service manager, just encouraged me and put like lots of faith in me and said, why don't you go to college? So I started going to North Notts College. I did a drug awareness course. Then I did the level 2, which and Framework paid half and lent me half to pay for it because it was like 1,300 quid, you know. And he sounds daft. I'm thinking I'm doing a drug awareness course tackling substance misuse. He's like, I've done all the practical research, so it's time to actually just go and do the theory, you know. Yeah. So and it was like, and I sort of aced it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then it was like, why don't you do your GCSEs? Because I left school with no qualifications. But no, I don't know. And I tried doing my GCSE English, failed miserably. And we're going to do it again. And Nick's going, look, do it. You'll be okay. He goes, if you don't do it, you're going to think, why did I not do that? He goes, you need GCSEs. So I did it again and passed and got a better grade. I got a grade 5 instead of the 4, which were the requirement. And he said, like, what about like university? And I thought, I'd love it, but no, it's not for me. And I started mentoring social work students from Sheffield and Lincoln Uni.
No way.
You know, so, and I ended up where we were mentoring one, and she was in her 40s, this woman married, and I'm like, how do you manage, you know, financially and all that? She's going, easy, you get student loans and you got your maintenance grant, you know, and, you know, you can do this. So I went up to Leeds University and enrolled in a lifelong learning course, which was like a foundation, you know, for people returning or mature students at uni. And Nick drove me up there as well, you know, and I enrolled, and it was 2 nights a week and 2 Saturday mornings. So it didn't interfere with work. I did that for a year, and I was going to do a degree in sociology. And when I met this woman, I thought, no, I'm going to try social work. So I went through UCAS and stuff, and applied to Beckett's at Leeds and Bradford Uni and also Bradford College, who did a degree validated by Bolton University. And I got offers, and I chose Bradford College because it was only for first year Thursday and Fridays. So it meant I can still work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. And then when I went on placements, I just worked weekends in the hostel. So, I won't play. So, I mean, I grafted, I did graft it, but yeah, it was like, even to the maths and English to get into Leeds initially, I sort of failed the maths test and had to go back. Nick and Teresa were the assistant manager at Potter Street, the hostel, sat with me doing maths on the lunchtime, things that, to get me up. And then this is like, I'd be like, but I'm going to leave. I'm going to become a social worker and I'm going to leave. And it's like, so you need to like do this for yourself. And, you've got so much to offer with your life skills and everything else.
Your story.
Yeah. And did it, qualified, got a first. Bradford Council have been supporting me since the second year in college because I did talks on hate crime. I'm very much where I'm passionate about like social injustice, that homeless people are attacked by people who have everything, attacked some of the poorest, most vulnerable in society. You've got me started now, say you.
Come on, this is all right.
we label people professional beggars. We demonize like a person, they've probably got somewhere. They may have somewhere to live. They might be living in a hostel where they're hanging on by their fingernails. Instead of like sort of like criticizing, start lobbying, saying we want long-term free rehabilitation for people, not just a weekend or a week's detox.
It's not good
and
enough.
They go back to the same environment they came from.
Exactly.
And there's a story behind everything. Like I said, when I got to prison, I realized what my script were. Working with a psychiatrist, what issues I struggled to deal with,
Wow.
And it is all about that. It's there's a story behind everything, and we will get incensed by seeing an animal being mistreated, rightly so.
Yeah.
But yet, what as somebody sat in a doorway begging, or we'll just look at them and think, scum, whatever, It's crazy, We've got councils or like businesses where they put in anti-homeless architecture. If you look at benches where they've got armrests, that's to prevent someone sleeping on them.
Yeah, I've seen them in Nottingham.
Studs in the doorways.
Yeah,
or doorways where it's got an incline to get the water to come in.
Yeah, they get the metal building site barriers as well. Sometimes.
Sure, it's like we treat homeless people like sort of like vermin. It's like we don't want it with we keep getting told we're the fifth largest economy in the world, but yet we've got such an inequality gap. It's unreal.
Yeah.
Where I work in Bradford, the inequality is massive. Bradford Council, like I say, they're fantastic, with what they're working with the funding cuts and things like that. It's one of the most deprived cities in England.
Wow.
Mate, the mortality rate is high.
You've smashed it on this episode, mate. You make my job easy. I'll just sit back, have a sip of my water, and listen to what, mate. Honestly, you've got the most incredible story, and I love you've made it so easy because you've just gone and shared it. Like I don't like some guests have got to ask questions to just help it flow and let them enjoy it, and then it's like an encouragement. But mate, you made me think that you was gonna don't know what to do in here, but you've smashed it, mate. You've just bang, have that. But no, before we close, mate, I will ask a couple of questions. So the first one I want to ask you is, in terms of looking back over your life and your story, and you're reflecting, like, what would you say is today your biggest barrier with everything that you've been through? Everything you learn, anything that you can share, just to encourage our viewers, like, so with that barrier, and then how you kind of overcome that, because I'm conscious there'll be people who are watching this be so inspired, but like, right, how can I take just like one thing that Adam did to overcome like a barrier or something and he's been through? Do you know what I'm saying? I hope that makes sense.
Yeah. No. I think there's a couple of things. One is like recognize change, even the smallest changes, because things don't suddenly automatically get better within days of, you say, stopping gambling or stopping taking drugs or stopping drinking or getting that treatment. Life sort of, you think, it's a bit boring actually. What happens now? Because there's a void to fill, you know?
Wow, yeah.
And it's also like when I used to say some residents and go, I want to do what you do. Yeah, you can. But don't forget, I got out of prison in 2008. We're now in 2010. It's a long journey, you know, and now I'm only just going to college sort of thing, you know. I qualified, like say last year. So that's been 10 years in the making. It didn't just happen for me straight away. And I think that's what people, sometimes that's where they fall, because they think nothing's happening, nothing's different, nothing's changed, you know. It's a long route out of poverty as well, you know. I think another thing as well, one of the barriers, and I still do now, the imposter syndrome. Like, somebody's going to come along now and go, well, you're on a podcast, get off here. What do you mean you're a social worker? How's that work? Even though it's by my own hard work and my achievements, you just think, I don't fit. It's like, there's a catch to this, you know, and it's sort of like pinching yourself sort of thing. But yeah, an imposter that I feel like I don't belong in the role, even though work and everybody around me encourages me and says, you are fit for this role. It is for you, you know. It's self-doubt. And I still have sort of problems. I go through periods of depression, you know, I take antidepressants. I'm quite at ease with that. You know, it's just something I know what I need to take the edge off and put things in perspective, because if not, I've tried something like my thoughts race, I get very fragmented thinking. I start to dwell on my past, but not in a good way, in a bad way, where now I reflect a lot on my past, because I draw a lot of strength and knowledge from my past to help other people, you know. So I think it keeps it real, and that understanding of like the complexities of life, what people are going through, by reflecting back on what my life was like. Forgetting it would be a trip hazard, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah. You stumble and then you've forgotten where you've come from. Yeah.
But I think the best thing is love yourself. Learn to love yourself, man. You know, it's like, and that somebody out there cares. And you might think, well, they get paid to like talk to me and get paid. But these people tend to do it because they want to, not because there's a paycheck with it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that to me is people caring for you. All right, they might get paid, but I got into social work not for the money, there ain't much, but you know,
not for what you do. Yeah, I agree.
Because it's just another level of being able to work with people and try and make a bit of a difference. Did I tell you I got a message off Twitter? I told you that, didn't I? About the guy saying, did I tell you about? I got a message basically on Twitter from this lad saying, "No, your life will like a blueprint to my life."
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, he did.
Yeah. So just that one message there, for me, validated that whole Twitter post.
100%.
You know,
mate, your story saved lives. Definitely, no doubt. It's amazing. And speaking about saving lives, so we have an Enlighten the Shadows question, Alan, and basically, I feel like you could have already answered it, what you've said, but so for any bloke right now today, and then, you know, they've been watching this, they've been listening to your story and going, well, yeah, that's great, that's Adam, but that's not me, and they just feel utterly hopeless and they want to just end their life today. What's one bit of short advice you can give them today?
It's not worth the pride. Pride will bury you, you know. If you think you're too proud to like open up and speak to somebody, you know, that is the worst thing. Talk to somebody. Do you know what I mean? You're not going to lose face. You know, it's and it's a difficult one, you know, when you're in it, but what you got to lose as well. by just speaking to somebody, you know, opening up, whether it's to your partner, to your friend. You know, your friends might be, yeah, blokes and that, they'll laugh, but yeah, they'll suffer from the same insecurities, the same self-doubt, the same dark times as what you're going through. And it'll just take you to open up and they'll go, yeah, I know what you mean. You know, if we keep this front up and we're all blokes and we're doing all right and all this, you know, we're really vulnerable. It's that vulnerability. And then, you know, when it comes to a point, you know, where like you feel like you can't go on anymore. And it's also, it's not about that you shouldn't feel that you've got a right to feel depressed or fed up with your life and stuff because you've got everything. Because if you look at like Gary Speed and that, he had everything. But yet some of the biggest battles are like won and lost in the mind, aren't they? You know what I mean?
Yes,
and yeah, you could look around and say, I've got a nice house, I've got kids and all that sort of thing. So I haven't got a right to speak to somebody about feeling low, about feeling like fed up and depressed. Yeah, you have.
Come on.
We all can fall on hard times, but some fall further and harder than others.
True, mate.
You know?
So, quality, mate. Smashed it. Absolutely amazing. Love it. So are you a Leeds fan? Are you a Leeds fan?
Not really. I like to watch a good game of football. I am, yeah.
I thought we were going to get on even more.
I like to go to the pub, in the old days when you could, on a Sunday, for a couple of pints, I'd watch one game, and, you know, whoever were playing didn't care as long as it was a good game of football.
Yeah,
I like to read about it and that. And yeah, we used to go to Notts County games. Used to give us tickets to be able to take the residents. Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, I'm a massive Leeds fan, mate. In fact, you mentioned my man. Yeah, you mentioned my man. When I get an office one day, this is going to be as a reminder for all the work that we do. So we got Gary Speed here.
Yeah.
So yeah, just as a reminder.
And all my friends and family up here in Wakefield, they're all Leeds fans and that, you know.
Leeds, aren't we?
You know, if I've got to follow a ticket, it is Leeds. Of course it's Leeds, yes, you know. Right. Can't afford the tickets to go watch them.
It's pricey, but
great,
mate. Thank you so much for coming on and doing this. So before we say bye to people, we just want to say if you've enjoyed this episode 25 of Adam Pagett, just make sure coming up on the screen right now is the direction to click that big red button. Yep, that's to subscribe. It takes 1 minute, guys, to just quickly get an account with YouTube and just subscribe to this channel. The more we get subscriptions, the farther reach we can get on YouTube, and then we can just reach men who are struggling and suffering their life right now. And with Adam's wonderful story, it can reach men, and who knows what it'll do. So yeah, guys, check that out. Below the actual video line is the real red button. So that's that. And then also on social media, we've got Twitter and Instagram handles coming up right now. So that's at ENLIGHTEN the SH1. And throughout the video, you would have seen we've put on the screen, and really want to encourage people to go here. This is a big signpost. It's our Enlighten the Shadows men's private group. It's a safeguarded place. There's rules on there, and we really look out for one another. So if you feel like you're alone and you want community, get on there. You're going to get poured out enough love and lots of encouragement. We're like brothers, and we look out for one another on there. So yeah, make sure you do that. But yeah, guys, this has been class. Adam, thank you so much, mate. This has been episode 25, and we'll see you guys next time. All right, thank you. Cheers, mate.
Cheers.